So it's been a while since I shared my original starter Pokemon, and I did promise evolutions, but, well, a while kind of turned into 3 months. To those who don't know, I've got a full concept for a Pokemon fan game in my head, called Pokemon Fable. I started working on it 2 years ago, but recently I've wanted to revisit my old Pokemon designs, starting with, well, the starter Pokemon. Last time, I designed the first stages of these starters, Cresvis, Sylphon, and Dewfin. And in this free video project, I'm going to be giving them all evolutions, starting with the star of today's video, the grass-type starter Cresvis. They're basically meant to be this dinosaur bird, specifically based on the Archaeopteryx. Which, yeah, we already have an Archaeopteryx in this series, but Pokemon is no stranger to tackling the same species multiple times. It's all a matter of making them distinct concepts. And what concept did I go with for Cresvis? Well, ever since Generation 4, starter trios have always had a connecting theme with their final stages. And while I didn't really have one for my trio at first, while I was redrawing them, I came up with an idea that I'm really hooked on. So hear me out. My trio of starters embody different genres of stories, and for Cresvis' evolutions, I wanted their story theme to be action anime. I had this vision in my head of one of those anime protagonists with a super flashy fighting style. I wanted to try and reflect that with this evolution line. So where are we going to go with this idea? Well, let's start the Speedpaint and find out! So the second stage of the Cresvis line is Sylvogel. The name comes from Sylvan, a word that refers to forest, and Vogel, the German name of the Archaeopteryx. So I know that modern Pokemon starters always get their second type on their final evolution, but I decided to let all my starters become dual types at their second stage, just because dual types are fun. And for Cresvis, a lot of you guys thought he was going to become grass flying type, being a bird and all, but the actual dual type we're going with is grass rock. I mean, hey, it is the fossil type, so it fits for something based on an ancient bird. Plus, grass rock is one of the coolest dual types and it's sorely underrepresented. Aside from legendaries and alternate forms, the only grass rock type is the Cradilly line. I think it'd be nice to have more than that. But anyway, let's move on to the design. The Cresvis line was my first time designing a 3-stage evolution line, and back when I first drew the line, I knew I wanted to vary up the shapes between evolutions. So while the first stage is kind of a circular chick, Sylvogel has more of a proper dino-bird body, complete with a tail and actual limbs. I like the progression, but I wanted to change some things for the redesign. For starters, the original body shape was very flat. This time around, I studied the Archaeopteryx a lot more closely to get some nicer proportions. I also pulled some inspiration from the Velociraptor. And this time around, I wanted Sylvogel to have a more distinct shape from the final stage, so I made sure to keep them pretty short. I wanted them to look young and plucky to fit with the anime protagonist vibes, and I like how it turned out. They definitely have a lot more personality now. I also tried to streamline Sylvogel's leaves a bit more, to make the design a bit more readable. And I also added these leaf blades to the sides of the arms. Those are pretty essential to Sylvogel's fighting style after all. Also, I wanted to give Sylvogel a little leaf cape in this redesign. It's meant to be a progression from the big wing cloak on Cresvis, but it's a lot smaller, letting the body be more open and free. And hey, if there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I love putting implied clothes on my fantasy creatures. So yeah, that's Sylvogel's design finished. Let's take a look at the Pokedex entry. Sylvogel, the Leaf Raptor Pokemon. After evolving, Sylvogel become far more acrobatic, able to jump 20 times their height from a standstill. The leaves on their arms can be extended into razor-sharp blades to slice their enemies with. Sylvogel tend to be overconfident in their newfound abilities, which leads to them challenging foes far greater than themselves. Sylvogel evolves from Cresvis at level 18. I really liked revisiting Sylvogel. I think they benefited a lot from my new style. Though while working on this, part of me worried that he might be a bit too similar to Cresvis. But I just didn't stress about it. If I stress too much about things, then I just get no work done. That's how it is. So now we're on to the final stage, Verdaryx. The name comes from Verdant and Archaeopteryx. This design was probably my favourite back when I first drew him, but redrawing him was kind of a pain. Definitely the hardest of these starters to redesign. So back when I first designed Verdaryx, I was basically making Sylvogel, but more. I gave them a lot more leaves, including these long leaves that hang down over the arms, and larger head leaves that form a big frame around the head. I really like those two elements, but aside from that, the design lacked focus. Though I think the thing I liked the most about Verdaryx was the idea of how they move. I always pictured them being able to open up their leaves and a big fan behind them, this being their animation when using a special attack. And of course, with big leaves hanging around the arms, you can bet I have a lot of fun imagining Verdaryx using Leaf Blade. I mean hey, Leaf Blade is my favourite Pokemon move. So now I want to talk about the redesign process. This time around, I wanted to lean into the idea of Verdaryx having two stances. The one where they have their leaf cloak down, which is what I'm drawing in Speedpaint, and the one where it's out and open. I even made a sketch for the latter, to show you guys what I mean. And I want to lean into that pose being kind of like their anime super form. With the way the leaves spike up and spread out, the shape kind of reminded me of Super Saiyan hair from Dragon Ball. Also, the super form idea got me really inspired for their signature move, but let's not jump the bullet seat just yet. So for Verdaryx's regular state, when they don't have their leaves spread out, I wanted them to hang down like a massive leaf cape. It's kind of the final progression of the implied close of this line. Cresvis gets a big leaf cloak, Sylvogel gets a leaf cape, and Verdaryx kind of combines the two. Also, with the eyes on Verdaryx, I did actually reference to Dragon Ball eye style when I was first making concept sketches. Wanted to make an homage to the whole Super Saiyan idea and all. I do think I could have committed to it more, but hey, that was the original intention. Though after I stopped recording, I did go back and revise the eyes, and this time I actually pulled up Goku's eyes as a reference. I also changed the shape of the head leaves, and I made the head a bit bigger, so if anyone's wondering why the final art looks a bit different from the speed paint, that'd be why. So the last thing I have to talk about with Verdaryx isn't something with the design, but rather their signature move. All modern starter Pokemon have a signature move, and I wanted to try showing what these moves would look like with some sketches. And for Verdaryx, that signature move is Verdant's Wind, where they call forth a storm of leafy swamp winds, blow down the enemy, then rush forth and slice through them with their blades. So yeah, that's everything I have to say. Now let's take a look at the Pokedex entry. Verdaryx, the Hunter Pokemon. Having matured from their previous overconfidence, Verdaryx are now fully capable fighters. When approaching an enemy, they spread out their leafy wings in a giant fan behind them, allowing them to draw in power from the sun. Then, they rush and slice their foe at blinding speeds. Scientists have found that Archeops is the ancestor of Verdaryx. Verdaryx evolves from Sylvogel at level 36. At first, I didn't like how this redesign came out. But I think it's come around, and I've gotten really attached to Verdaryx again. Part of that came from making some changes in post, but also from drawing those sketches for the signature move. And in the end, I think Verdaryx is still my favourite of the final stages. He's just a cool bird, and cool designs are always right up my alley. So there we have it, our grass starter line is complete. Let me know your thoughts on the Verdaryx line in the comments, those are always appreciated. And I'm sorry this video took so long. I've been working on the 3 starter videos all at once, which I've never done before, coupled with wanting to take it slower with my videos for my mental health, along with a healthy dose of procrastination, and yeah, that'd be why. But hopefully you won't have to wait too long for my next video, because next time, we're going to evolve Sylphon, the Fire-type starter. I know that Sylphon's the fan favourite of the trio, so stay tuned for when that video comes out. Until then, stay hopeful, don't give up on your dreams, and I'll see you all next time.